He's a very passionate man. He likes to get out with the people, and with that comes a large security risk. We are monitoring very closely threats against the Pope as he comes into the United States. We have disrupted one particular case.
With Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth back with you now on Newsmax Prime. That was House Homeland Security Chairman Michael McCaul telling ABC's This Week that the U.S. is gearing up for the visit of Pope Francis later this month.
And as you just heard, McCaul said a plot against the Pope has already been discovered. How safe can the Secret Service keep the Pope, who loves to be among the people?
Well, for more on this, let's welcome in former Secret Service agent Dan Emmett. He's also the author of the book, Within Arm's Length, a Secret Service agent's definitive inside account of protecting the president. Dan, welcome to Newsmax Prime. Just to get this straight, the Pope has the Swiss Guards in the Vatican. We have the Secret Service and other agencies, law enforcement agencies here. Who has the ultimate responsibility for the Pope when he's in the United States?
Well, ultimately, the United States Secret Service has that responsibility, and it took on that responsibility really began in the late 1960s when the Secret Service began protecting all visiting foreign heads of state to the United States if they were here on an official visit, which of course this will be. So it's ultimately the Secret Service is the controlling agency here.
And how does the Secret Service monitor what's real versus what's not?
Very difficult. The Secret Service runs down every single threat against any protectee under its umbrella, whether it's the president, the vice president, or the Pope. So keep in mind that the Secret Service really has two functions when it comes to protection. One would be the men and the women in the business suits and the sunglasses standing next to the protectee. The other is the protective intelligence mission, where the Secret Service monitors and working very closely with other federal agencies, the American intelligence community, as well as local agencies, run down every single potential threat that they can find.
Dan, we were seeing some scenes of President Obama out with the crowd, surrounded by Secret Service men. This Pope, if he has something in common with American politicians, I don't mean to profane the papacy, but he does enjoy getting out in the crowd. How much tougher will that make the job of the Secret Service?
Well, it makes it very tough, very difficult, because the more open, the more exposed the protectee is to the general public, the harder the Secret Service mission becomes. And quite frankly, more people are interested in the comings and the goings of the Pope than they are the president. And so let's say the Pope decides to walk down Connecticut Avenue, he's going to be mobbed, whereas the president is probably not going to be. So it's actually, the Pope is probably the most high-profile protectee the Secret Service has.
You know, as J.D. just mentioned earlier, the president likes to be among the people, as does the Pope. And earlier this year, the Secret Service took a lot of heat for putting the president and his family in jeopardy. Has this agency improved at all since then?
Well, in my view, it has. Under the great leadership of the new director, Joe Clancy, and his assistant, Craig McGaugh, they have really, in my view, turned the agency around. And that can be determined simply by looking at the headlines or lack thereof when it comes to adverse actions on the part of the Secret Service or it's situations that they should not be involved in. There has been a little bit of creep, a little bit of overlap between the last Secret Service administration and this one, but generally speaking, I think that they have really got the ship turned around or in the process of it.
Dan, let me return to the whole dynamic of protecting the Pope. You were saying that it is conceivable that the crowds and the fervor with which they greet the Pope will lead to a whole lot of people rushing down there. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I understood as you were kind of painting the picture. This, if you were ranking the assignments of the Secret Service, would this upcoming papal visit rank among the toughest assignments the Secret Service will have?
In my view, it is the toughest. I worked many Pope visits to the United States when I was an agent, and the level of protection that he receives meets or exceeds that we give to our own sitting president. And again, simply because of the exposure that he gets, as well as the adverse intelligence. Keep in mind that Pope Paul II was shot outside of the Vatican in 1981, and so there's actually been a Pope shot since the last president was shot. So he's a very high-profile target. There are a lot of people in the world that wish him ill, and so the Secret Service has quite a job on its hands.
From what we saw with John Paul II, as you mentioned, at the Vatican, to Pope Francis coming to this country, yes, the Secret Service will have its work cut out for itself. Again, our thanks very much to our guest who wrote the book, Within Arm's Length, a Secret Service agent's definitive inside accounts of protecting the president. Dan Emmett, who Skyped in from Montgomery, Alabama. Our thanks to him and our thanks to you. Now stay with us. There's more ahead.